time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as tonight's we are on the tour. Not the PGA Tour. I know a lot of you think I should be on the PGA Tour. This is even better. This is the Palmetto Pigskin Tour, something I am qualified for. We do this exclusively on Sports Talk. Nobody else in radio covers the state every football season like we do, traveling to each of the schools not named Clemson, not named USC, because they deserve it. They work hard, they sweat hard, and they're getting ready for their season. We come to you from the William Bill Hamilton press box at South Carolina State, home of the Bulldogs. In fact, the living legend Bill Hamilton, the Hall of Fame sports information director, is in his own press box. That must be pretty neat to have a space named after you, and you're still around to sit in it, so that's a good thing. After 7 o'clock, Buddy Pugh, head football coach here of the Bulldogs, will join us, a couple of players as well. After the interview with Coach Pugh, we'll have tight end Austin Ruger, who is out of Dutch Fork High School, and also defensive back, cornerback Alex Brown, who is out of Lake Marion High School. So we are so excited to be on the tour. Meantime, we've got USC and Clemson coverage for you tonight. The Gamecocks practiced again this morning, putting on the full pads. Clemson practiced last night, and they are practicing again this afternoon. And last night, Dabo Sweeney talked, and Kelly Bryant talked for the first time in the camp. We'll get his thoughts and some of Dabo's thoughts, and we have coverage from USC as well. Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes in our studios back in Columbia. So, guys, to me, this is when things really get exciting, when we start to roll around the state. And you know what I find is, as we go on through this and we go to different schools, the coaches are tuned in to some degree. I know they're focused on their teams, but they'll ask me, well, where have you been already? What have you seen at the different schools and stuff like that? That's very gratifying to know that they enjoy having us on their campus for a little while and promoting their programs.
It's a good thing. And, you know, I think the one thing that we continue to strive to do is give people the exposure that they deserve. Like you said, Corn, I mean, we have more than just South Carolina and Clemson in this state. We've got South Carolina State, we've got Wofford, we've got Furman, we've got Charleston Southern, Coastal Carolina, all these schools in here that play football, not just at the Division I level, but all over the place. And it's interesting to kind of see how they all continue to develop. We've got to know these coaches. We've got to know these programs very, very closely. And Pro, it's obviously something that that this network continues to be proud of and do.
Well, yeah, don't forget North Greenville also. But yeah, the key thing about this year so far, Corn, I don't know about you, but it seems to me, you know, coaches want to see guys work through adversity. And, you know, being a South Carolinian, it really, truly hasn't been hot enough.
Has it? Has it,
no,
though?
it has not.
But 95 degrees and 80% humidity is not enough for you?
No, it's not enough.
As those who have had to observe practice for South Carolina and Clemson over the past couple of days, I would like a word. It has been plenty hot enough.
Well,
you're a sissy from the north, so what do you do?
I moved here from Houston where it was triple digits every day in the month of July.
That's what we need. We need a few triple digits.
Come on.
You were weaned on the winters of Long Island, okay?
Come on.
That's all we need to know. Speaking of the Gamecocks, full pads today, Will, the cock drill and all that stuff taking place. So they're starting to get down to basics there at USC.
They are. And, you know, it's funny. We were talking with defensive line coach Lance Thompson, who we'll hear from in our second hour of the program. Or actually, no, we'll hear in a couple segments here in the first hour of our program, rather. It's interesting to kind of see what it's like for those young guys the first time they get hit, especially when it's by somebody, one of those first team offensive linemen like Zach Bailey or Donnell Stanley, who comes in and hits them for the first time. And it really is an indoctrination into the next level. And even some of these guys who were there mid-year getting their second opportunity at least to go through a camp. The one thing that South Carolina has started to at least have to workaround, Corn, is the attrition, and it's at a position that they really could not use any in. Steven Montag appeared in the yellow non-contact jersey for the first time today in practice. He was walking around, though he looked okay. It could be something that is minor. We did not see Tavin Jackson at practice either today. That's something that is a big red flag for South Carolina, and a couple of others remain absent. Tyreek Johnson, Jesus Gibbs, Caleb Kinlaw. We're supposed to get an update from Will Muschamp on injuries on Saturday. No real update on any of the guys who were in yellow, who continue to possibly be in yellow. JT Ebay is one of those guys, and also Josh Belk remains on the sidelines of practice, not practicing for South Carolina. So it's getting to a point now, Corn, where, you know, we're starting to see some actual contributors on the sidelines, and whether it's the heat, whether it's conditioning, whether it's nagging injuries, soft tissue stuff, South Carolina wants to avoid any kind of pitfalls and traps, the same kinds that befell Will Muschamp in his third year in Florida, which unfortunately led to his ultimate downfall there.
Yeah. Don't we also understand, though, we don't have any confirmation, and I guess Saturday will be the day that the freshman lineman Jesus Gibbs is a bit banged up and not participating? He's
not. We still are waiting on an official confirmation from the folks at USC on that, but unfortunate for them. We didn't see him at practice. We didn't see Tavin Jackson on campus, like we said. A couple of guys who, again, we're awaiting confirmation. Don't want to put the cart before the horse as far as that goes, waiting for the official confirmation from the players, but from the coaches, rather. The coaches had a situation last fall, if you remember, Corn. One of the coaches spoke out of turn on a particular injury, and Will Muschamp said, listen, I don't want to talk about injuries if anybody other than coming from the horse's mouth there. So from Muschamp, we'll get the information from him on that. But as far as that goes, South Carolina is dealing with some attrition right now. And as far as Clemson goes, Corn, you know, we have the audio from Dabo and Kelly Bryant from yesterday. Seems like Kelly had his best practice of the fall, and you know, people are trying to make this a done deal for Trevor Lawrence, but from Kelly's perspective, he wants to remind everybody that he's still there.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing he talked about, and what became a storyline last night after the interviews, was he's appreciating how the coaches are handling the competition deal at quarterback, as they both coaches and players. Of course, nobody's talked to Trevor Lawrence, but in terms of Kelly Bryant, he appreciates that the coaches have been open from the beginning, telling him what the deal is, what the competition is going to be like, and how this is going to be determined. So unlike the situation at Alabama, apparently, where those quarterbacks kind of feel like they're in the dark, Kelly Bryant feels like he's in the light at Clemson, and he knows what he's up against in terms of competition and what the coaches are thinking.
It's weird because, and even just from the standpoint of the way Dabo handles these things, you know, what is it going to be like for Trevor Lawrence week 1 against Furman if he is named the starter? He'll have to go through the media week like the number 1 quarterback would normally, and it'd be the first time we get a chance to speak with him. I don't think that Dabo wants to put him through that limelight. I think he wants to wait and have him go through his first game. The more and more I think about it, I think Kelly Bryant will be the first one who takes snaps against Furman, but you will see a heavy dose of the hair.
Well, you know, the mental aspect of any situation with a young player is you want him to put him in positions early on where success is about 95% guaranteed. Because if he fails, now you have to deal with psychologically, when do you pull him? Do you let him stay in and then take some more lumps, or do you pull him to the side and talk to him about some things he can adjust to? A whole bunch of things you have to do from a mental standpoint. That's why these coaches, when they work on those master's degrees, they take a lot of psychology courses, because a lot of coaching is psychology, especially in football.
Phone number 800-956-7266 if you want to jump on board. We'll work you in and out of the program. Braves have already played today, playing a doubleheader at Washington, a day-night deal. Did not go well for the Braves in game 1 as they lose to the Nationals. What was that final, guys? 6-2?
8-3.
8-3.
I'm sorry, 8-3. Game 2 is coming up in just a little bit. And we'll be back from South Carolina State and Columbia. Dabo Swinney around the corner. Phone calls as well. Sports Talk on a Tuesday night.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Couple things before we get to Dabo Sweeney here on Sports Talk. Your phone calls at 800-956-7266. See, Dante Sawyer got himself a pro deal with the Washington Redskins, former Carolina defensive lineman. He was going to play with Birmingham of the Alliance of American Football, but congrats to Dante for getting himself at least a chance to stick on either with the football team or with practice squad. Seth Beer was named Astros minor league player of the month for the month of August. He's hitting .916 with his OPS through his first 45 professional games. And Browns receiver, the former Florida wide receiver Antonio Callaway, got popped, you see, Corn, for marijuana possession and driving with a suspended license at 3 o'clock Sunday morning.
Ouch.
Amazing. After they had just traded Corey Coleman and moved him up on the depth chart, he gets popped for marijuana and driving with a suspended license. Unbelievable.
Not good. Not good. Not very smart.
But you know what? Florida's still ranked 22nd in the country in this year's CBS Sports preseason poll. Because
actually, number 25.
Number 25. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
They're
22.
They're still ranked amongst the elite because we think that they have a quarterback. Except Dan Mullen thinks they don't have a quarterback.
By the way, Sports Illustrated, for those of you who still follow that publication, as do I still like Sports Illustrated. Not just in February when the swimsuit edition comes in. I like it year round, even though they've gone to a twice monthly printing schedule. They came out with their preseason top 25 today, and guess who's number one? Just take a guess who's number one.
You already, I know the answer because you told me earlier.
I know
today.
that you know the. I'm doing this kind of. Can you play along with me for a second?
I don't know. Alabama, Corn?
No, you would be wrong. It's Clemson.
Okay. This is a terrible bit. Terrible.
Well,
bit.
I'm sorry. I was just making it up as we go along here. So, speaking of rankings. Actually, I'm watching a women's soccer exhibition game right now between South Carolina State and Gardner-Webb.
Very nice.
Having a hard time staying awake. I'm fighting through it as they run up and down the field doing absolutely nothing.
It's not very nice.
But the United Soccer coaches today announced their preseason poll, and the USC team is ranked at number 5.
That's good.
Highest ranked team in the SEC, ahead of Florida, coming in at number 7. Did Tim Tebow play soccer, by the way, down there in Florida?
Mm-mm.
That's not.
I mean, I kind of figured maybe because he did everything else.
No.
Dabo Sweeney. I had a chance to hear from him last night. The Tigers working out, I believe, in shells last night, and shells again today. Full pads for them will come on Wednesday. And so he met with the media last night after their practice. They went out in the evening, wrapped up about 8:30 or so. And here is some of what he had to say to the reporters on hand. This is primarily about a couple of positions of concern to everybody in Tigerland, safety and quarterback. Here's Dabo.
I'm very encouraged with what I've seen. Got our secondary guys so far at this point. And we're night and day at wideout from where we were this time last year. Just knowledge, details, understanding. It's so encouraging to see that group of guys last year, that we're just kind of learning. They're all at another level of understanding and just their route running. They're cleaning up things at their break points and influencing their routes. And it's fun to see that. And then, DK and Justin kind of jumping in there. DK's had the spring and he's made improvements. And, Justin is really natural. Love his coachability. You never know till you start coaching a guy where he's going to be. And, I've had some guys really talented that I just go, oh boy, okay, it's going to take a little while here to get them where they need to be. And he's one of those guys that's just very natural at a lot of things. And the things that we need to correct and clean up, he's hungry for that coaching and he really applies it. So I'm just overall really pleased with what I've seen to this point. The guys in the trenches are grinding, kind of mixing it up a little bit in practice, just kind of randomly call a guy out and throw a guy in and create some unique matchups and do some one-on-ones in some of our team periods. So just challenging them a little, especially some of these guys that from a depth standpoint that I know can play, but trying not to let them get in a routine of who they're always going against. But so far, so good. A lot of competition at punter and kicker. That's going to be a battle right there. I mean, I'm really pleased with what I've seen from a competition standpoint, and it's going to be interesting to see who steps up and wins that job.
It's been fun watching the quarterbacks go at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just what I thought there too. They're all better. It's unbelievable competition. There's just this sense of urgency on every play, and I love that. As a coach, that's it don't get no better than that. I mean, when every single play, there's just this level of intensity at that position, and it's awesome. It's awesome. But Kelly has had 3 good days. Had a really good day today. I thought this might have been his best day. And Trevor he's just better in all facets from where he was in the spring. I mean, so he's just continuing to improve. He's heavier. I think that's really helped him. Knowledge-wise, he's in his first 3 days, he's cut down. He's still making some mistakes, but he's cut way down on those mistakes. He's still kind of figuring out some things on the type of throws that he can make, which that's what practice is for. I mean, he's a guy that kind of thinks he can make every throw, and in high school he was pretty much able to make all those throws, whereas the windows are a little tighter, the guys are a little longer, they're a little more athletic, they can get to the spots a little quicker, and so I think he's figuring that out a little bit, but just love where he is.
All right, Dabo, from his meeting with the media last night, not really shedding any new light on the quarterback battle, which continues, and I think after they put the pads on Wednesday and start knocking each other around, have their first scrimmage coming up here, guys, we'll start to see some separation, I think, maybe one way or the other.
One thing my good friend Ross Taylor, who's the man who took over for Tim Beret, is somehow they still haven't figured out how to do an interview outside of where they have the jugs machine after practice. But,
Well, see, there's nowhere to go. I'm serious. 30-something years of covering Clemson. There's nowhere to go after a practice where it's quiet. If you don't have the jugs machine behind you, you have a lawnmower next to you.
I mean, I know it's small up there. We could do the interview in the damn lake if we want to.
No, because they've got fountains and things in the lake that make noise. There's just nowhere to hide from the noise.
I've been up there, Clemson. It sometimes gets quiet, every once in a while. Dabo does take a nap every once in a while.
Well, they have that nap room.
Yeah,
they should have
nap pod.
They should have a quiet room. They should have a quiet room over there.
They really should. Some people just had to ruin things for everybody there, but I'm not going to get into that. I digress. The one thing I will say, though, and we mentioned this last night, I think a lot is being said about the quarterbacks. Not enough is being said with what they get to throw to. I mean, that is as much of an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver as you could see in the country right now. When you think about when you get all the way down to Hunter Renfrow as maybe being your second or third option after you have T. Higgins, after you have Amari Rodgers, after you have all the guys we talked about yesterday, even the guys who are upcoming like Justin Ross, Darion Kendrick. I mean, I'm excited to see just what kind of numbers this offense can put up as long as they can run the football with some sort of competence, because of the fact that you can't be one-dimensional with this team.
I have a hard time considering Hunter Renfrow to be a second or third option. He is your security blanket on every pass play pro. I would say if something breaks down, they always come looking for Hunter Renfrow if they're not looking for him initially, because he's a guy that just runs the great routes, has the best hands, and finds a way to get open. So he's always going to be at the top of the board if you ask me. I know what you're saying. They do have great receivers up and down their board there, and they go deep, and they've added more to it. The competition, we talk about the competition at quarterback there being as tight as it is. The competition for snaps at Clemson, I mean, you might have guys like Cornell Powell, for example, get very few snaps, or TJ Chase get very few snaps because they're so deep at wide receiver, and those are quality receivers who could be starring elsewhere. They kind of face a crowded room, kind of like the quarterbacks did until a couple of them left.
Well, that's one of the keys to Clemson. You keep those guys fresh. You get a guy running a deep pattern, you trot the other guy out, they're playing against the same corner, and bam, there's a big play.
We'll transition to Carolina, who put on the full pads for the first time today, and talk to their D-line coach next. I tell you what, Corn, I'm so – if there's one thing that I'm tired of more than the Trevor Lawrence hype, it's the Tua hype. Because ESPN has come out with their top 10 quarterbacks in college football, and Tua is like number 4 on their list.
Yeah, all because of one throw. Well, he did have a decent second half there. What did he have? He brought him back with 3 touchdowns in the second half and overtime. So I mean, he did.
Never mind the 20. Never mind the 25-yard sack in overtime.
Right. But that happens with quarterbacks. Yeah. I mean, heck, even Aaron Rodgers gets sacked from time to time, and we know he's the greatest quarterback ever to play the game, next to Brett Favre and next to Bart Starr.
I don't think so.
Anyway, yeah, that's. Our media, national media, these guys, you think the local people that cover teams are suck-ups? These national guys are really worse. But, I mean, they're just sucking up to an entire country. And they hook on a guy. I mean, some people are touting Trevor Lawrence for Heisman candidacy and All-American teams, and the guy hadn't taken the first snap in a college game yet. I mean, give them a chance to see what the warts are. They've all got warts, and I don't know what's going to happen in Alabama. Jalen Hurts is a guy that's been through it there for 2 years at the highest level. I can't believe that Jalen Hurts has all of a sudden forgotten how to be a winning quarterback at Alabama. I just can't believe it. He just hadn't morphed into,
I think,
the typical walk-on guy.
Well, the key point is the situation at Alabama really makes me kind of wonder where they are right now. The key point to remember is not only has Jalen Hurts won football games, but it's almost like yearly he's played under a new offensive coordinator. They don't keep him that long. And as I said before, and many times, Alabama is the one team who I think when they win national championships, their quarterback is not the best QB on the field.
Well, it's weird. We were talking yesterday about Urban Meyer's failure to maintain and control the program. When have we ever seen Nick Saban fail to maintain control of the program? Because it seems like there's anarchy between the things that we're hearing from Hurts and the things we're hearing from Tua.
And that's really got to bother him. I mean, right now, because of this situation, he's seeing a lot of meddling going on in his program. And he's a guy, of course, that loves to control the message, which made that interview with Hurts the other day so surprising to a lot of people. I mean, here's a guy actually speaking out and expressing his true feelings about things. And that's not Saban-like at all. You wonder what he had to say inside when they all got back together about that. Maybe he was okay with it. Maybe he wasn't. But when you have this sort of thing going on the national level and you're Alabama, everybody is taking shots at you and poking around, trying to poke the bear, so to speak. And I'm sure Saban's not real happy about that. I'm sure he's trying to do all he can to get this thing back under control.
Closer to home, the South Carolina Gamecocks had their first full pads practice today of fall camp. We had a chance to sit down with one of my favorite guys to hear from during the fall, at least from the position coach standpoint. Defensive line coach Lance Thompson on a variety of issues, including a couple of big keys who are coming back from them in the interior, and Keir Thomas and Javon Kinlaw, and just how much this group emphasizes turnovers.
Today was the first day of pads. We're really, with the 3 guys we got up front that last year played ball, we're confident with them. We think they're better. They're doing some good things. And with those guys inside and the guys we have outside, I think we'll be in a better situation with, answering your question with Rush. But right now, I'll be honest with you, with the young guys, today was first day of pads, so that's always a reality check, But, all we're trying to get them to do is, accept our expectations in terms of, playing with effort, playing with toughness, playing with discipline. And I'll be honest with you guys, this generation of kid, really, you start from, ground zero. You teach them how to listen. You say, hey, what day of the week it is, and they tell you January. So, we're really trying to get them to listen, understand that this is a process, and don't get frustrated with expectations or what your mom and dad are wanting you to do or what, you guys want them to do. Let's just go out and work hard, work right every day, and be the best we can be.
How much do you guys talk about turnovers and getting the ball?
Do you read the Bible every day?
Sure.
Well, our Bible in football is turnovers, and we do it every day. And you know what? This is, I think, my 31st year coaching. I know I don't look it, but I think without a doubt, we coach as a staff turnovers and creating takeaways better than any place I've been. And I've been on some damn good staffs with damn good coaches. T-Rob does a phenomenal job. The whole staff does. And, last year was a big difference for us. So there's a couple turnovers. A lot of that game, that interception down there, big game. So you look at those games, Michigan game, those turnovers, big deal. So, turnovers, big plays, explosive plays, those are the two key indicators of success on the football field.
How impressive was it last year that Javon could play at the level he played at while dropping that weight? And what do you expect out of him this year?
I just expect for him to come to practice every day with a good attitude and work hard. I mean, he developed, he's young in ball. The guy's really played ball 2 years. He hadn't been exposed to it. He hadn't experienced it. So anytime any of us experience something new, the more we do it, the better we'll get. Learn from things, and just all about your perception. And as you get experience, your perception changes, and you're able to recognize and react to the game faster, more physical, that kind of stuff.
Seems like a seesaw. You had Javon trying to shed weight and Kier trying to gain weight. How have you seen the maturation of those two as they kind of try to get to the same level?
Well, I'll be honest, if they're working right, and they do, around here we do a great job in the weight room, off-season program, practice. If they're working right, and now that we got Kristen in the fold and her nutritional aspects really shown with every player, unfortunately it's shown with some of our coaches too. But if they're taking care of their business, they're going to develop. That's what football is. Football is a developmental game. Football is a line of scrimmage game. So up there, you play close together with big guys and you're pounding somebody every play. That really takes time for kids to develop, and they'll get better over time. You can't get frustrated with them, but you got to push them. You got to let them understand the nature of that position. It's a violent position. You know what? Kier, to me, is a guy he's kind of an enigma. But I will tell you this about Kier. He is the toughest guy on our football team. And to me, when Coach Muschamp talks about effort, toughness, and discipline, but when you talk about toughness, Kier Thomas is that guy.
It's weird, Corn. We talked about the deficiencies at safety, and I'm looking kind of down the middle, just not only at middle linebacker, but safety, and now, of course, the interior defensive line. Beyond Kinlaw and Thomas, that's it as far as experience goes, other than maybe Kobe Smith. You're going to have one of those true freshmen, whether it's J.J. Enagbare or Rick Sandage or even somebody else, step up and really take the bull by the horns, because they're going to have to play by necessity.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's been a concern all summer long and now into camp, is developing some size and depth on that defensive front. Jabari Ellis, who's been hurt, they need him to get healthy and get in there. Junior college guy. He has got to start to contribute right away. They need MJ Webb, a guy that was heavily recruited coming out of Madison, Georgia.
True. Came
into school early. They need him to grow up in a hurry and give them something there. So, you're right. They do have some issues there right in the middle. I think with Kinlaw, if he holds up in there together with Kobe Smith and Kier Thomas, I think those three give them some good bulk in there. You throw Jabari Ellis in there too. That's four that they can rotate in and out. One question I wanted to ask is, I was standing there on the other side of Coach Thompson as he was asking the question, do you read the Bible every day? And he was looking right at you when he asked that question. So you took the fifth. You didn't give a definite answer about reading the Bible.
Well,
I just wanted to know what your biblical activities.
The question was directed at our colleague David Cloninger. He was the one who asked the question about turnovers, and I believe that was directed towards him. So
I could have sworn he was looking at you.
I have cracked open the Bible a time or two. I wouldn't say I crack it open as much as I crack open my Phil Steele, but I'm proficient with it.
Or crack open your PBR. You do that pretty much on a regular basis.
Corn, you know me well enough now. I do not ever let PBR touch these very precious lips. It is much more high class than that.
Oh, okay.
Much more high class than that.
I imagine 75% of our statewide audience considers PBR like champagne. Okay, so be careful.
Well, Miller High Life is the champagne of beers, so that's at least a step up from PBR.
Well, the old model used to be was beer when it's near, brandy when it's handy. That was the mantra back in the day.
Kelly Bryant has made his presence known at Clemson camp. He'll make his presence known on this program next, and Corn's recruiting report as we continue not only from Columbia, but from South Carolina State. Their Palmetto Pigskin Tour appearance comes your way in our second hour as we continue on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Whether it's low rates, high rewards, using Founders credit cards on clothes, school supplies, a new computer, even college tuition will help prepare your kids for their first day of school. Apply online at foundersfcu.com/visa. The phone number is 800-956-7266. And Cohen, I believe we have somebody on the line who's not too far from where you are.
We are in Orangeburg at South Carolina State awaiting Buddy Pugh in our second hour and a couple of the Bulldog players as well. Let's go to Brad in Orangeburg, not too far from the stadium, I would imagine. Brad, good evening. How are you?
Well, I'd say not too far. Well, my uncle got his master's degree from South Carolina State, but that was in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, I believe.
Okay.
But in any case, I have a question. It's very subjective, but I'd like to, I hear a lot about the South Carolina coaching staff and their credentials. And I mean, sounds like there's a lot of a lot of their lineage is high end, Alabama, a lot of teams from a lot of teams with some good lineage. But would you say, all things being equal, South Carolina's players, Clemson players, and again, it's a subjective question. I'd just like to hear what you guys think. Coaches in South Carolina collectively were better than Clemson coaches if they had the same players. And I just want to hear the answer to that question. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks very much. Yeah, that's a very subjective question, because if you ask somebody on one side, they're going to give you a one-sided answer, and vice versa. You give South Carolina's coaching staff the level of talent Clemson has, it automatically makes them better coaches. Now, I will say that as far as Clemson's offense is concerned, Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott have done a great job picking up where Chad Morris left off and continuing to expand that offense and keep it electric and high scoring. Again, talent has a lot to do with it. You look at the offensive line coaches, Eric Wolford and Robbie Caldwell. I mean, those are two of the best in the business. That's pretty much a wash there.
Wolford has NFL experience too from that perspective. So you throw that into the case.
Caldwell has head coaching experience, and on the defensive side, I mean, Venables right now the highest paid assistant coach in the country. Hard to pinpoint any defensive coordinator that you would take over him right now based on the results. But again, the great talent. Travaris Robinson is relatively new as a defensive coordinator, so time will tell. And Brian McClendon's in his first year running an offense, so time will tell.
Yeah, T-Rob has playing experience in the league. The thing about Brent Venables, though, is that, like you said, he's very well compensated. He has the recruiting advantage of Clemson, obviously being able to get the kind of talent there. But he has shown that his scheme and the way that they coach defense at Clemson, there's very, very few peers when it comes to that in the country, let alone the state.
Well, the key point is we can pull out the old cliche. It's not about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. Because we've seen one of the great coaching jobs every year, if you look at it, is David Cutcliffe with what he has to work with at Duke.
Please. And
how he comes on the field and they pretty much put a scare in everybody they play.
I wouldn't want his job.
But I will say that good coaches do make good teams who can take some average players and make them play better than they think they are. Steve Spurrier, I think, would be one of those. I think Steve Spurrier could pretty much take any program and make it into a winner. I know it didn't end well for him at South Carolina, but look what he did. Look what he did at Duke, and look what he did at Florida. He would be one who I would say can take, as they used to say about Danny Ford, I think it was, he can take yours and beat his, and he can take his and beat yours. So coaching does make a difference in a lot of situations, but it does help. You're not going to win the Kentucky Derby with a mule. And it does help to have the true bloods, the blue bloods who can really play the game underneath you.
Spurrier could do it as long as the program wasn't named the Washington Redskins. That's all I'll have to say.
True that. He had the wrong approach to the NFL. Kelly Bryant, our first chance to hear from him. After practice last night, he's in the midst of that competition to hold on to his job as Clemson's starting quarterback. Here's a couple of minutes of him talking with the media last night, giving us his evaluation of how that competition is going thus far.
It's good. Finally get back, on the field, get around the coaches and, good competitive work, the last 3 days, still got a ways to go. And so, we're going to keep working and just try to get better, just focus on one day at hand, not try to look ahead.
How do you feel like you've done so far?
I feel like we've been doing good. Just trying to be a leader, more vocal. Just been challenging myself, really got to bring the energy. I just know it's hot. Some days, don't want to have guys out there dragging, just making sure that we're getting the most out of it and just making sure that I'm challenging myself, like I said, each and every day I'm out here.
Coach says he tries to be more transparent to you guys as much as possible. Can you talk about that and the competition and how honest they are with you guys going into practice?
Oh, they've just been straight up honest with us, since before the meetings leading up to it. It's a competition, at every position, the best guy's going to play. So, it's competition everywhere. You just got to go out and prove yourself. There's nothing guaranteed. You have to get everything earned. You got to work for it.
How do you balance having a freshman in the quarterback room, trying to help him, show him the way you guys do things? At the same time, you're competing, trying to keep the job that you had a year ago.
I just got to continue. I don't feel like I got to do anything different. Of course, I'm going to be there for all those guys in the room and, try to help them when I can. Also, make sure I'm challenging myself and competing with myself because, I got those guys, behind me. They're very talented. They want the position as well. But, it's good, healthy competition in the room. So good morale, on and off the field. I feel like we got a good bunch of guys, that want to play and, that we have good friendship as well.
Coach Sweeney was just saying that the wide receivers are way ahead of where they were this time last year. Is that how you feel?
Definitely. I feel like we got more depth, a lot more experience, guys that know how to play, know how to do the little things, that leads to the big things. So, it's good to see, you got guys out there, they can come in, there won't be no drop off in either position out there.
What have you learned about yourself throughout this whole competition this year?
Just continue to just enjoy it, man. It's not gonna always be pretty. You don't get too down on yourself or get too high on yourself. Just focus on the day at hand. Like I was saying, just try not to focus, ahead. Looking forward to the next day. Just focus on being in the moment and just winning the day and winning the rep.
Are there some similarities to what you did a year ago when you were competing, trying to win the starting job? Do you lean back to the successes that you had there and some of the same similarities?
Yes, I look back on it. It definitely helped me. But now it's a different situation. A year ago was a year ago. Now I'm competing again. So I'm going to continue to work and just try not to get complacent as well.
Going back to focus, what did Davo tell you at the end of the spring that you needed to work on this summer, and what did you spend your summer doing?
Just being consistent, in all areas, decision making, and just making sure that I just focus on, not focus on, what's around me, just focus on, just being Killer B, like I've been all last year, and just try not, do anything different. Of course, you want to be better than you were a year ago, but just focus on yourself. Everything handle itself.
All right, Kelly Bryant from up Clemson way. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight quickly. Safety Jalen McCullough, Powder Springs, Georgia, been sitting on a 4 of USC, Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn, but he got an official offer from Georgia at the beginning of the month, and that's given him some pause. He was happy that Kirby Smart hit him up on that. Says it's pretty big, so he's thinking a little bit about Georgia, but still the other 4 are out front, especially USC and Tennessee, because they've been working him the hardest. He does not plan a decision before his season. He does plan to take official visits to the Final Four before he decides, or maybe he'll take them afterwards. Who knows? USC target offensive lineman Anthony Wiggin, Lackawanna Junior College in Pennsylvania, committed to Penn State today. In basketball, 6'7" Christian Brown of Lower Richland has set an official to Clemson for August 31st. He took an official to UNLV in June. On his most recent short list, he also had USC, Seton Hall, Florida, Georgia, and NC State. And Clemson offered 2022 point guard 6'3" Dylan Hunter of Atlanta. All right, there you go. Top of the hour break is here. When we come back, the Palmetto Pigskin Tour from South Carolina State continues with the Bulldogs here on Sports Talk.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. As we commence the Palmetto Pigskin Tour for 2018, we always start at a place where you should start, at South Carolina State University in Orangeburg. We are pleased to have with us the head coach, Buddy Pugh, going into year number 17 at South Carolina State. 120 wins, 94 wins in the MEAC, 6 MEAC championships, 4 trips to the FCS playoffs, looking to get back there this year. Coach, great to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Phil. How are you?
Oh, we're great. Always a pleasure seeing you. Update us on camp to this point. I saw you guys putting the finishing touches on your afternoon workout today. How's camp gone for you?
Been good so far. We've had 4 practices, and we just got to the point now where we got shoulder pads on, so you can do a little bit of football, real kinds of stuff. And, you know, our guys seem to be real enthusiastic. We got a bunch of guys out there, a little over 100, and, you know, those guys are trying to figure out now, you know, who can do what. We've got a bunch of young guys. I maybe 50 some odd freshmen and sophomores on this team. So, you know, it's a team that's got a little bit of a youth kind of flair to it, and, you know, got some old folk too. So we need to see if we can figure out if we can get some of those young guys ready to play pretty quickly. There's a new rule out there this year where you can play those guys 4 games and not necessarily lose a redshirt year that way for them. So we're going to try to see if we can figure out how to get the best out of the most of them. And, you know, that's kind of what our mission is in camp so far.
I know last year was disappointing for you, but gosh, you were in so many of the ball games that you lost. You could have really had your record reversed. You lose some really good players off your defense, including, of course, the outstanding Darius Leonard, who's, I think, going to be an outstanding player in the NFL. So your defense was really good last year, struggled on offense, and you've got your top receivers are back. Your quarterback is back. I mean, you've got some of the pieces to be good on offense this year if you can put it together with a new offensive coordinator.
We can, and we possibly can, I better say. We do have a lot of parts back for that side of the ball. Dwan Ford, our quarterback that played most of the season for us last year, is back. We like Tyrese Nick, a little run-around kind of guy from over at Johnston, South Carolina, but you know, I don't know if we can if we can throw the football good enough with either one of those guys to do the kind of stuff that we've been trying to do. So, you know, we brought Bennett Swigert in here. Bennett's done a nice job of trying to figure out what this offense can do. And, you know, I guess he won't really be tested until we get into the season and figure out, you know, what we can do against them other folk. But he's got his work cut out for us. But we got a bunch of running backs, about as many running backs as you can have on a football team. And, you know, we're trying to figure out ways to, you know, maybe get them involved. We hadn't been able to run the football as well in the last 3 years as we've been in the past. We used to really be able to run it. Now we just kind of, you know, put her along, and, you know, that's not been much fun. So if we can get the quarterbacks and the running backs going, our offensive line going, Deshaun Goddard's our new offensive line coach, and, you know, he's working his fan out trying to figure out how to get those guys going, then, you know, then we got a shot again. But now that's kind of our big issue at South Carolina State. You know, every year, you know, we generally play pretty good on defense. And, you know, I don't think this year being different. I think we've got some pretty good players returning over there, but we've struggled on offense from time to time. And that's been, you know, the $55 million question, trying to figure out how to get those guys going. So that's what our mission is there. And, you know, we're going to see what we can do during camp to see if we can fix some of those issues.
We're here at South Carolina State with Buddy Pugh. So you lose your top 3 tacklers on defense, but then you've got Kendrick Gathers is back, Paul McIver is back. You've got the makings of a good defensive front.
We do. Those guys are all, I think, excited to be back and kind of have their shot to be, you know, sort of the leaders of the bunch. Paul McIver is a inside guy, kind of typical of the kind of defensive front guys we've had here for the last few years are the defensive front guys that can run from sideline to sideline. So, we're excited, about what we possibly can do, with those guys. And then we got a new group of linebackers. Lane Jones from up at West Oak, South Carolina, is going to probably start at one linebacker, and Jared Jones from Atlanta. We think we've got decent enough personnel that way. We signed a couple of young guys that we accept. B.J. Davis that comes to mind first. We think is a possible, big time guy. He's kind of similar to what Darius was at that age. Tall, rangy, can run like the Dickens. I think they lost maybe about one game in about 2 or 3 years up at South Point. I don't know exactly how many it was, but we hoping that he can, bring some of that magic that they had up there to Orangeburg. So, we got some guys returning. You're going to talk to a guy here in a few minutes, Alex Brown, who's a corner for us from down the Holly Hill. That I think is also a name that you'll hear a good bit about this year. Plays really well out on the flanks, and you can sometimes kind of put him out there on a guy and kind of forget about him because he does a nice job in man coverage and that kind of stuff. So we think we got some bodies back over there, and we think South Carolina State's defense is in good hands with Coach Jonathan Saxon in his first year as a defensive coordinator. We're excited about him and what he brings to the table. So, we'll see if these guys can continue to do what South Carolina State defenses generally do. Sure.
Coach, looking at obviously your youth movement at least a little bit more, how do you temper the hunger that these guys are going to have, but also harness it in a way that makes your team better?
Well, that's the big mission when you've got as many new faces as we have. We've got to try to see if we can fix as many things as we need to fix with the bodies that we got in place. We think these guys are the same kinds of caliber guys. They just don't have the experience of some of those guys. I don't know if we'll ever be able to do what Darius Leonard did for us, in the same kind of way. So we got to try to figure out how to maybe use, bodies, to kind of do what those kind of guys did individually. But, we think that those guys on defense have an opportunity to be pretty good if we can, continue to do the enthusiastic kinds of things that we've done. Defense is mostly knowing what to do and running like heck to the football. And I don't know if that, is anything that we can't do with most anybody if we believe in what we're doing. So we'll try to fix, try to do what we do that way. And if need be, we'll keep rotating bodies until we find the ones that can.
Coaches, last year, a lot of times, you weren't effective on first down offensively, and you found yourself in second and long, third and long, and obviously you have to tear some pages out of your playbook when you're there. Has an emphasis been placed on doing different things or having greater sense of urgency on first down to get you in second and short?
Well, Tom, I think you hit the nail right on the head, and a big reason for those kinds of issues with the fact that we couldn't run the football back in the days when we were, really good here. The running game got us into a lot of second and fives, second and fours, that kind of stuff. But when anytime you run the football, you you second and 10, and, you don't really throw the ball all that well, then it's a formula for not, having a very good possible chance that way. So, we've got to be able to run the football a little bit better. That's what the whole thing has got to be, or at least figure how to do better on first down somehow or another. Now, whether it be run or some other variety of how you move the football, then that's what we got to get done this preseason.
Visiting with Buddy Pugh, we'll have a couple of the Bulldog players with us here in just a few minutes before we let you go. Season opens up at Georgia Southern in Central Florida. And, listen, I know Georgia Southern is not too far removed from FCS football. That's not a bad opener for you.
No, and, it's close enough where we can, get in there and play a football game and get back home. It's a lot better than what we started last year. I think we were, at Southern in Louisiana, and then we went down to play Skip down in Western Louisiana. So I think we can do a little bit better travel-wise this year. But, we're excited about going out and play Georgia Southern. Those guys are pretty good, though, and it is an FCS program in a way. An FBS program in a way, where you can pretty much bet that those guys have got some good-looking bodies down there and know what the heck they're doing.
We wish you the best of luck. Hope it goes great. Hope we can talk about another MEAC championship and postseason play for you this year.
Thanks a bunch, guys.
Buddy Pugh, head coach of the South Carolina State Bulldogs, with us here on Sports Talk, our Palmetto Pigskin Tour stop here in Orangeburg. Coming up, we'll be talking with Alex Brown and Austin Ruger here at South Carolina State. Be right back. The Marching 101. They're not outside practicing today. We've got a thunderstorm about to cut loose here in Orangeburg, but a couple of the Bulldog players hoping to bring the thunder this season. Austin Ruger, big tight end, a senior out of Dutch Fork High School, joining us here on Sports Talk. Alex Brown, senior cornerback out of Lake Marion High School. Good to have you two guys with us tonight here on Sports Talk. Austin, let's begin with you. The offense in camp so far, what do you think about what you're seeing? You guys coming together pretty quickly?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people flying around, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming like always, but it looks pretty good. You know, it's real hopeful. Coach Swag is out there, full-fledged. You know how he goes. Our players are locked in, coaches locked in. Our young guys are actually picking up stuff pretty fast, so it's very promising. I'm really excited to see what we're going to do.
What do you think about Coach Swigert and the philosophy that he brings to the offense?
Oh, he brings a ton of energy. All he does is energy. So that's all he expects from us is right now he's detail-oriented, but right now he's more focused on just effort. So if you give him effort, give you energy, give you promising outlooks, then he can work with that. And it's actually very exciting to see him out there going crazy. So
how's it working with you guys and with DeJuan Ford this year? Guy got a lot of experience last year, going to be your quarterback this year. You heard Coach Pugh say he really wants to see the passing game pick up. Are you seeing that in camp?
Yeah, Coach Swag brought that when he came. He really helped develop DeJuan, and DeJuan actually buying in and picking it up, and he's using that experience that he had in game last year and transferring into practice. So he's becoming that leader that we always need him to be, and he's stepping up and making plays, and it looks good. So hope he continues to do that.
There is nothing wrong with this receiving core. You look at Quan Caldwell, 34 catches. Burrows had 30 catches. Dubose had 29 catches last year. You had 10 catches. I know you want to get in the end zone this year.
Oh, yeah, of course. Need that.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
What about the group of receivers as a whole?
They're all returners. They're all experienced. They all been there, done that in the MEAC. So confidence is key. So they have a lot of confidence coming back. And I don't think there's a problem with that. They all can move good. They all run routes. They all can catch. All can block. They're very versatile guys, and that's all we need. That's all we expect them to be. And they continue to do what they're doing now. It's going to be one great season to watch.
Alex, you have a new director of your defense as well. What's that been like over there, learning the new scheme that he has brought in?
Well, really, he's not a step down from Coach Restivo. So, like, he's bringing the same energy Restivo had. He was under Restivo last year, and it's not really nothing new to pick up because he's bringing the same old energy. I'm not saying he's bringing the same plays, but we're learning and we're loving them at the same time.
The defense was really good last year. I mean, you give up 18 points a game in football these days, you're supposed to win a lot of games, right? So
Yes,
you guys
Yes,
on the
right.
defensive side, you can hold your heads up high.
Yes, sir. We can. We definitely can. And we feel as though we're going to be a good defense this year, too. We are trying as a goal to be #1 in every major category in the FCS.
But you have to replace Darius Leonard right there in the middle of the defense, linebacker who made a ton of plays for you. How do you replace him, not just the tackles that he made, but just his presence and his persona on your defense?
Well, really, as a defense, we're trying to get a new identity. It's not just Darius Leonard. It's all of us as a guy. But we have Lane Jones that's coming in behind him, and he's doing a pretty good job. He's bringing the energy. He's getting us through practice, and we're all running to the ball. So it's a different identity, sir.
When you came to South Carolina State, did you know that the history of the defense and the identity that defensive players at this program have assumed and moved forward over the years?
Yes, sir. I really did. And that's what really got me here, knowing that the defense was tenacious. We were flying around. We're always #1. We are always the best defense in the MEAC. And it's definitely great. And I love to be a part of that.
Now, when you were at Lake Marion, did you and Mike Williams cross paths?
Yes, sir. We did. He graduated a year before me, but every practice, it was me and him going at it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. How'd that go?
You know, we win some, I win some, he wins some, and it's just back and forth all day. 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And he's a pretty amazing guy, isn't
He's
he?
pretty good. He's with Chargers now. He's doing big things. He's coming off an injury. So I like to see what he do with the Chargers this year.
Austin, what have you concentrated on in the offseason and here early in camp, physically and in your game to make yourself a better player, maybe make yourself an all-MEAC player this year?
I'm hitting the weight room. I've been getting with Coach Swift, getting in the weight room, getting big because I'm in the trenches most of the time, battling with the big boys. And I need to preserve my body and make sure I can get through all 4 quarters, do the best for my team. And me and Coach Swag, getting the playbook. Me and Coach Jenkins, we got a new coach, tight end coach, Coach Jenkins from Carolina, and he's up here. And both of their guys, they're just drawing up scheme after scheme after scheme and getting in the playbook, developing routes, concepts, formations, looking at disguises on defense. So mainly is IQ wise, getting in the weight room, developing my IQ, making sure I can read defenses, getting open, and hopefully that translates to success.
When you were coached by a guy like Corey Jenkins, who was a quarterback at South Carolina, he was a linebacker in the NFL. He brings a ton of experience. He was also a great baseball player too. Back in the day. I mean, the guy could do everything. Yeah. So, what is he teaching you directly at your position that you hope to apply this season?
See, with a guy like Coach Jenkins, he's, like you said, versatile guy. He's pretty much done everything at every level you can do. So anything that he brings to the table, anything that he opens his mouth is worthy to say, I take it in like a sponge, absorb it, because it's versatile. I need to nurture it. And what he's pretty much been emphasis on our guys is, when he came in here, we all were pretty smart guys. We pick up plays pretty fast, concepts, we understand those, and technique wise, we were pretty sound. But he's really been emphasizing the physicality, because if you hit a guy in the mouth every play, every quarter, he's gonna get tired of that. So if you wear a guy down and it becomes easy to us, conditioning in the field, nothing like conditioning football. You can run sprints all day during the summer, up and down the field, but once you put them pads on and that helmet and them jerseys that get wet, then that's a whole other pounds you're carrying around with you. So that conditioning is another aspect. So when we get late in the fourth quarter, late in the game, we still grinding, we still moving, and wearing that defense out and keep it pushing.
Alex, you and Austin, you're seniors. You're used to winning here. You're used to winning championships. This program last year was not that. So what are your expectations for this year? What do you want to leave behind legacy-wise for your team and for the legacy at South Carolina State? What do you hope to accomplish?
Honestly, I want to bring back a winning tradition. We've been losing for the last 2 years, and the 2 years before we've been winning. And I think my red shirt freshman year, we was a game away from winning the championship. So yeah, I definitely want to bring back that winning mentality, instill it in all the younger guys, because we are a young core.
Yeah,
we want to win.
Basically, yeah, exactly what Alex said is that we got to restore State's tradition. Like, everybody knows State wins championships, and that's what they do. That's what we do. So you got to instill that back into these young guys, bring back that bulldog mentality. That the tradition is real heavy here. And you got to make people know that when you come to Orangeburg, that you're not going to win.
It's not a walk in the park.
Definitely not a walk in the park.
Well, Austin, how do you guys kind of feel like you stack up with the MEAC this year? Where's the strength in the league?
We just as good as anybody in the MEAC. I can say that right now. We're personnel-wise, the players that we have, pound for pound, we line us up with anybody in the MEAC. We're gonna give them a run for their money, and we just got to translate that to the game plan, to the field, and we got to install these guys that. You know what I'm saying? No matter what happens, good or bad, we just got to flush it, forget it, and move on to the next play and continue pushing.
Yes.
We wish you guys the best of luck. Go out and get Georgia Southern.
Oh, yeah, we on that. You know that.
Get off to a great start, and hope you have a great run through the conference. We'll be watching very closely and hoping everything goes well for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Great having you with us. Alex Brown and Austin Ruger with us on Sports Talk as it is pouring outside here in Orangeburg. Another late afternoon thunderstorm moving through the Midlands area of South Carolina. But the guys are happy. They don't have to practice tonight. They've got that behind them. But it sounds like from Coach Pugh, guys, we got a couple of tough days ahead for the Dogs as they got a scrimmage coming up here soon.
Yeah, it's odd. You want to be able to get as much time in with your own players, and also at least trying to give you at least your best look. That's the one thing I've always hated about college, is that you don't get an opportunity to really test yourself out before you take the field. It's something where I wish they were able to do something against, not their own bodies, like we've been talking about. We talked a lot about that over the course of the preseason.
Well, you could tell he wants to find out who's tough in the trenches, because Buddy was an old offensive lineman himself, and he wants somebody to open up some holes so he can run the football.
Well, we're going to have to talk about some uncomfortable things with our next guest, NASCAR's Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway, on the tumult over the weekend with the folks in NASCAR and the France family. And we'll talk about that and Watkins Glen when we come back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Tuesday evening. We continue with the moving around corn as we talk NASCAR with Darlington Raceway President Kerry Tharp.
Oh, always great to mix NASCAR and football as we do here on Sports Talk. KT is joining us, and well, you had a great race at Watkins Glen on Sunday with a first-time winner in Chase Elliott that had to excite everybody. And unfortunately, there was a negative story to come out later that night or the next day. And I know this is maybe kind of a sensitive story for you, KT, since this involves one of your bosses. I guess I don't know how the chain of command works there, but I guess he's one of the folks that oversees Darlington. So I don't know how much you can share with us, but just your thoughts on the situation with Brian Fance taking a indefinite leave following his arrest. What's this going to mean for NASCAR moving forward?
Well, when I was with NASCAR, certainly he was our leader and has been our leader for many, many years. And, he needs to step back now and take care of some things. I think he said, from a personal standpoint, so we have to respect that. Jim France is stepping in as the acting CEO and chairman. And I can tell you that Jim France is one of the best leaders and one of the best minds I've ever been around. Bill France Jr.'s brother. And, I think the leadership team at NASCAR was very, very deep. Mike Helton, Steve O'Donnell, and others are going to step up and certainly do what they have to do to continue to lead our sport. So, we wish Brian the best, and hopefully, he will take care of things. But right now we're focusing on certainly, what's ahead of us, and that's we go to Michigan this weekend. But thankfully NASCAR has a lot of strong leaders, and certainly Jim France is at the top of that list.
All right, let's talk about the past Sunday and an exciting win for Chase Elliott. It was great seeing his dad in victory lane with him to share the moment. They had to be exciting. And I know in your experiences, you've been there when drivers have won for that first time. I mean, you've been around the guys that have multiple wins and then the ones that get that first one. What's it like being around the driver, the team, and the associates when they get that first win?
Well, I tell you what, it's just unbelievable, the excitement that they have. I remember I was up at Watkins Glen a few years ago, and A.J. Allmendinger got his first and what is now his only win in the NASCAR Cup Series. And that was a great afternoon of him, just enjoying the experience and realizing what he had accomplished. But a guy like Chase Elliott, certainly, his dad was one of the greats in the sport. He's in the Hall of Fame and one of the more popular drivers than we've ever seen. And, there's been some pressure on Chase to win. I think he's had 8 second-place finishes in 99 races. And so, he stayed the course, and I thought it was cool that he won on a road course. That's where his dad won his first race, I'm told, out on Riverside out in California at a road course years ago. And so a lot of similarities there, but really happy for Chase. And like you said, there's nothing like the first time when you get a win like that. And I'm sure this is one he'll savor for many, many years.
Of course, KT, I want to at least touch on this particular part with you just because of the fact that it will be at least a new twist in the playoff because of having that road course at Charlotte. What are your thoughts on just kind of including that as a new wrinkle into the postseason?
Well, I think it's very, very interesting, Will. You bring up a great point. Not only is it in the playoffs, but it's a cutoff race in the playoffs. So you talk about some high anxiety when those guys get up to Charlotte the end of next month. In fact, Kyle Busch was in Myrtle Beach today for an event with us, and I was asking him about the Roval, and he said, probably going to be 5 or 6 guys that really have it down pretty well and are putting on a great show. And he said the rest of the field is probably going to be wrecking behind them. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how things sort themselves out there. I think it's a move that Marcus Smith and the folks at SMI took on in conjunction with NASCAR. I think it's something that's kind of neat to kind of shake things up, see what happens. Is it going to work? Who knows? You can't try. You don't know if something's going to work unless you try it. So I have applaud those folks up there at Charlotte for trying that. I look forward to seeing that race. I think it's going to be cool. But having it in the playoffs certainly is pretty daunting.
Well, tell me this, Chase Elliott, we know it's his first race, but Chevy getting a win. I mean, how important is it for Chevy? And on the other side, that Ford almost got shut out of the top 10.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tom. You know, Chevrolet has not won since our opening weekend at Daytona, Austin Dillon, and that seemed like light years ago. And so they have been such a strong competitor in the sport with Jimmy Johnson and everybody else, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr. And so for them to go this long without a win is almost unheard of. So for them to pick up a W, we'll see what happens. Now we go to Michigan. It's an entirely different racetrack. Chevrolet has not done well up there over the years, over the last few years. It's been a long time since Chevrolet's had a winner up there at Michigan. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can continue this momentum. But you're right, Ford didn't fare as well as they had been, when it came to Watkins Glen last week. But we'll see what happens as they go to Michigan, which is an entirely different racetrack.
Talking with KT, Kerry Tharp, El Presidente of Darlington. So we're getting rain now every day here in South Carolina, sometimes morning, sometimes afternoon, sometimes nights. And I know you're getting it in Darlington. Is that impacting the work at your place?
Well, not really, Phil. I mean, we're probably about 2 weeks out before we're actually going to be done with our actually less than 2 weeks out, I should say, probably about 7 or 10 days out before we're going to be done with our project. There has been some afternoon showers, but these guys have been working feverishly, probably, I'd say, the last, 4 to 5 weeks. They've been working double shifts, working at night. And I was over there yesterday inside the track. Was the last time I went inside the facility to see how it looks. And certainly the seats are coming in. It's going to be super. I was telling people today when we had our victory tour with Kyle Busch, it's going to be better experience than we've had before with the with everybody being able to see better, experience the race better. And, it's going to be a tight fit, but they're going to get done, and it's going to be exciting.
Speaking of the victory tour with Kyle Busch, what kind of mood was he in? How was he greeted in Myrtle Beach when you guys went down there today?
Well, like I told people when we got to the Broadway Grand Prix, I said, Kyle Busch, love him or hate him, is the biggest name in the sport right now, and you can't argue with that. He gets more reception at driver introductions than anybody. Now, not all of it's positive, but he gets more reception than any other driver, and he was in a great frame of mind. He was super today. We did some go-kart racing, and then we went over to the Palm Charter School, which is a motorsports school there in Conway. They're getting ready to open the school over there, and they dedicated a classroom in his honor. So, we squeezed about everything we could out of him for about 4 hours. It was nonstop, going from place to place. But, he was very upbeat. He was very excited, and, it was a great day for Darlington.
Did he wreck anybody on the go-kart track?
He did. I tell you, in the first heat, he took somebody out, put him up into the wall. He had his own Skittles go-kart. We had it specially wrapped with the Skittles 18 paint scheme on it. And I think as the heats went along, I think he was getting a little extra help from the engine department there. I'm not sure if he had a restrictor plate on his go-kart.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, a young man, though, from the area actually won the final heat. He was a big Kyle Busch fan. Kyle presented him with some Skittles swag there in the event to make sure that he had a good time, and even gave him an extra victory lap. So it was a good time. Everybody had a good time there today.
I'm sure you did. Hey, listen, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see how things go in Michigan, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, Phil. I appreciate y'all.
You got it, my man. Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington. Their time is coming at us really, really quick. Labor Day is right around the corner. Before you know it, we'll be going racing once again at Darlington. And when we come back, more here on Sports Talk. Going to hear from one of the new Gamecocks, cornerback Nick Harvey, on your way here on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It's funny, Corn. We're going to have to hook a former Gamecock up with my relatives down under because Brian Bowen's headed to Sydney. I don't know if you saw this story earlier.
I did, but go ahead with it.
The former South Carolina and Louisville basketball player, although he played for neither, will get himself his first professional contract with the Sydney Kings, playing in the capital city in Australia. He will at least get themselves into the Next Stars program. He will be paid by the league centrally, not by the Kings in Sydney, in the capital of New South Wales, I should say, not the capital of the entire country. But from that perspective, South Carolina at least gets some international presence with that.
And, of course, you having a relative who's like, what, the Prime Minister of Australia or something?
Not the Prime Minister. She is the Premier of Queensland, which is not even the same state as where Sydney is in New South Wales, but it is the same country.
Just generalizing there. Just generalizing.
It would be like if you said she's the governor of New York and he was moving to Florida.
Oh, is that far apart?
Australia is
I know
huge.
It's a continent. I know.
Australia is huge. Just saying.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
It's a good. You know what? It's a great opportunity for him. I think it's fantastic, and at least he gets a chance to play somewhere this year. And with that, he gets automatic eligibility into the NBA draft next year.
And he gets to get money legally over the
Yes.
table.
Yes.
Instead of the other way, apparently, that it was being funneled in there. It was interesting to listen to Nick Harvey talk today, one of the newcomers to the USC team. He'll be a one-and-doner as a transfer from Texas A&M. And some of the conversation about comparing Texas A&M and South Carolina and the type of football and this sort of thing. Will, and you were there as well. And basically, I know Texas A&M has a ton of different traditions and things of that nature, but from a football standpoint, he sees the same passion here in Columbia that he saw out in Texas.
Well, I think one of the things and the tenor of the discussion seemed to kind of take on this particular vein, as we've noted very, very openly on this program. The one thing that they have not done at Texas A&M over the last couple of years is play a heck of a lot of defense. And one of the things that at least stood out from our conversation, which you'll hear now on Sports Talk, is that they care a little bit more about the way they play defense here with the Gamecocks than they do down there in Aggieville.
Man, I'm loving it. Everybody's competing well. We're getting after every day, and I see a lot of great things in this team.
How difficult is the language, getting your head around what everything is called now versus what you're used to?
At first, it was real difficult because we had less calls at A&M, but now I'm getting it. Got a good grasp of everything. I feel like I can play well in this defense.
What about this defense is different? What makes you think you can play well in it?
It's multiple calls in this defense. We play a little bit of everything, and then we play just a couple calls too. But here it's way more calls. So I feel like we can. This defense put the corners, nickels, and safeties in best positions for them to succeed.
What's it like to get to this point? I mean, having to go through the decision and the transfer and everything. What's it like to get to this point where going through your first full pads practice?
I'm enjoying it. Taking it every day as good as I can. One thing I have to get better on is energy and urgency. Talked to Coach Muschamp about it, and I just have to get going and just be ready to play.
Nick, how long were you here before you heard about the emphasis on turnovers?
First day. I mean, turnovers is a big thing here. I know I think they led the SEC last year in the turnovers, so I know it's a big deal here.
You saw this defensive playbook. Did you think, man, we should have been doing all this at A&M? Or, did you realize that other people were doing more than y'all were doing at A&M?
I actually didn't, but it kind of has the same concepts, but it's a little bit different. So, I feel like I'm handling it well.
How do you compare and contrast thus far? I know you've only had a limited amount of time here, but football here compared to what you were used to at A&M?
It's really no difference. Everybody's passionate about what they're doing. Everybody loves coming here every day. They come in, do what they have to do what the coaches say. It's really no difference here. Everybody has that urgency and energy, like I just talked about with Coach Muschamp. just have to be your best every day.
How much of a help has Rashad been to you?
He's a huge help because he actually knows the defense very well. I haven't really seen him mess up, like make mistakes. So I can talk to him about anything, whatever I need as far as checks. I can go to him.
So like trying to cover Debo.
Man, it's tough. We get each other better every day.
Is he compared to Christian Kirk?
Yeah, I feel like they're both pretty good receivers. Well, great receivers, I think. So, like I said, we get each other better every day.
Has Debo been the toughest cover thus far?
Brian Edwards, Shy Smith, Debo, Otrace. I feel like we probably have the best receiving coordination right now. It's tough every day. Like I said, we just getting everybody each other better every day.
Why did you choose South Carolina?
Man, T-Rob, man, Coach Muschamp, just love the way they coach, and they put a lot of passion into it. They love what they do, like I said, and it don't matter who you are. If you make a mistake, they're gonna get after you, and they're gonna make sure you do it right every time, or try to do it right every time till you get it down.
Quan, we've talked about the thinness at safety. That puts the onus more on these upperclassmen, namely Harvey, Fenton, and Nixon, in order to make sure that they are not only assignment correct, but they might have to overcompensate a little bit for what they might be lacking in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the look of Nick Harvey. I like the things that he can bring to the cornerback position, his experience, having played in the SEC. Highly recruited kid coming out of high school, so he brings a good rep with him. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to be able to really show what he can do. So I think I see positive things for him and for the defense with him on the field. I like to look at their corners. I mean, I think that South Carolina can hold up well from that standpoint with Nixon and Fenton, with Mukwamu, with Harvey. It sounds like J.C. Horn is having a tremendous early impact on the position. Now, Montac, the safeties are a bit of in a scary situation in terms of their depth. Looks like Montac and Jamias Williams are going to be the top two. I think Dickerson getting healthy is a big positive for them there. Javon Charleston remains in limbo. I don't think you can count on him now at all. So a guy like JT Ebay's got to step up and help him out right away, which he should, considering he's an older guy with a lot of experience.
And, of course, one guy they did have at safety, Zay Brown. I don't know if it's a permanent move, but they're trying him at weak side linebacker. So that's a guy that's out as far as that's concerned. But Montac, to me, is a key because he seems to be the one guy that we know is the Swiss Army knife of that defense. He can almost play any position on that defense.
Well, the thing about Harvey, I think Harvey, not all grad transfers are created equal, Corn. I think that Harvey comes from a standpoint of, listen, he was at a very highly touted program and it didn't work out. This is not necessarily a situation where there was a malcontent. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw the lack of production that comes out of that defense, and he wanted to play somewhere where he felt that he could shine and possibly at least turn some eyes to the next level. I'm not saying that he's automatically that kind of player, but I think you get him and you automatically have at least shored up a hole on the opposite side of Rashad Fenton. And even with Nixon being moved now to the nickel, that at least creates a lot more things you can do, especially with those younger guys you mentioned like Mukwamu and Horn. The pressure is not necessarily there for them to play early, although you might see them on the field like we saw Mukwamu a lot during the spring.
I think you nailed it extremely well. One quick little recruiting note for you. This in baseball, as announced this afternoon by the young man on his Twitter account, Clemson picks up a commitment from shortstop Mac Wagner, who hails from, of all places, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Huh.
Didn't know they played good baseball in Green Bay.
You can't play very long in Green Bay, Wisconsin during the year.
This will be for the 2020 class, Max Wagner. All right, guys, thank you. Thanks to the great Bill Hamilton for taking great care of us here at South Carolina State. Tomorrow night over at Benedict College in Columbia, the Palmetto Pigskin Tour continues. For the pro and for Willie P. and for Brian, this is Corn. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.